Hi, my name is Dr. Peter Vanier, and now what I would like to do is to give you a summary of what I believe is the worst emotion that doesn't exist. It's called abstract guilt, and it's also the base of my therapy. So for me, at the beginning, how to describe it? All separation equals grief equals guilt. So usually, most people, it's really easy to understand all separation equals grief, but at the word guilt, we don't understand anymore. So what I would like to do is try to make you understand what I mean. In a few minutes, I'm going to pull out a phrase, which is made up of 3 words. In those 3 words, it's abstract, you have nothing to say, nothing to do, it doesn't regard you at all. And I would ask my patients to put up a wall that it doesn't bother you. You understand what I'm trying to ask? And to get ready, understand clearly, it has nothing to do with you, it's fictive, it's abstract. You ready? It's your fault! You got it? So if it moved emotionally a bit, when I just said abstract, doesn't concern you at all. Okay, now I put up the volume a bit. But I could even have the volume very low. It's your fault. And you're even prepared to that same phrase. It's your fault. And it keeps hitting you every time I say that. It's your fault. It's fictive. Nothing is your fault. But every time I would say that, it's your fault, you're affected by it. It bothers you emotionally. Like there's a little poke. This is what I'm going to explain to you as to why you're living that. Most of my patients, most people, we all live it. And the base of that explanation is separation equals grief equals guilt. We all understand this part. Separation equals grief equals guilt. We don't understand. Why? Because there's 2 different types of guilt. The first is, I call it concrete, and the second is abstract. I'll explain to you both. The first, guilt, concrete equals, for example, I stole this, which I didn't. I'm taped here. I didn't steal it, but let's say I stole this pencil, this marker. Every time I take it, I have an emotion, I feel guilty. I don't feel good. It's so easy to resolve this emotion. It's because you know this is the cause of that bad feeling, so you have many actions to get out of that bad feeling. Of course, depending on your morality, it could be either give it back to the person, pay for it, throw it in the garbage, or turn the page and use it anyway. Depends on your own morality, how you can deal with that. But this is what we understand as guilt. So separation equals grief equals guilt. I'm not talking about concrete guilt. I'm talking about abstract guilt. This is not working too good. We'll try this one. Yeah, a bit better. Now, abstract guilt. I'll try to explain to you. I will explain to you what I mean by abstract guilt. For me, abstract guilt is the worst emotion that doesn't exist. And I'll give you an example of it. Most common example that I would tell my patients is let's say you have a little couple that's together and they have a child, 7, 8 years old, and that couple gets separated. Go and talk to the child during that separation. I guarantee you that child will say, it is my fault that mommy and daddy's getting separated. If I would have been a good little boy or a good little girl, they would stay together. Equals abstract guilt. Because the reality is what? Maybe dad's playing around, mom, whatever. I mean, it's totally not the child's fault. But does he really feel guilty? The answer is yes. So there's one example of abstract guilt that we all sort of know it exists. But guess what? When that child grows up, he keeps on living that all of his life. So, to come back here, the separation of mom and dad brings that child abstract guilt. I say that this is the worst emotion that doesn't exist for the reason is that it's not detectable. And also, it accumulates. So, let's say for example that child, he has that to start off in life, 7, 8 years old. You can have, what other kind of separations do we have in life? You get separated from school, different schools, different friends. You get separation when you move, different area, keep growing up, changing a job, co-workers. All separation equals abstract guilt. Separations in relationships, separations through death. So, all of our life, we're accumulating this abstract guilt. Now, how do we identify it? We identify it by the beginning of the phrase, if we go back to that child. If I would have been a good little boy, good little girl, if I would have, I could have, I should have. The end of the phrase is never important. For, let's say, the death of a loved one, I would have liked to have told my father I loved him before he died. The end of the phrase doesn't really matter what you convince yourself. It's the beginning that you understand that you're bringing to yourself this abstract guilt with the beginning. I could have, I should have, I would have liked to, I wanted to. It doesn't matter how you twist the words. That's how we identify that abstract guilt. Now, even if it's, for example, a separation relationship. Let's say the guy was a total jerk. You get separated. You still have that, I should have left him before. You're still bringing yourself that abstract guilt in every situation. Whether it's a good separation or a bad separation, all separation brings grief, abstract guilt. Okay, what I just did at the beginning was a little drop. The little drop is the phrase, it's your fault, is the drop. That vibrates that glass which is already full. So, for example, you could be living a separation or even thinking of getting separated, and it could vibrate that glass to the point that you don't understand yourself at all. And like for me, it's obvious. It's what we need to do is empty that glass. Also, there's another within the same. For me, it's no longer a theory. For me, it's fact. Is all victims of abuse. Victims. All victims of abuse live the same abstract guilt. Now, to begin with, there are 4 forms of abuse. First is sexual,